call this Ordinance Subcommittee meeting, September 28th to order, 6:05. And it looks like we are missing Councilor Smith, so we'll just go ahead and get started. We have food trucks and plastic bag restrictions. I wanted to just start off really briefly, just giving you an update on the packet that I gave you, which is a copy of our current mobile vendor ordinance, where a food truck ordinance would make sense laying within.
Right.
It is kind of at this point kind of blankets food trucks, but it's not necessarily applicable. The other pieces I put in here was Northampton's permit, their application, just to give us an idea of, like, you know, how Northampton is doing it, and Amherst. I have Amherst's mobile food service permit, and which is, you know, I think it seems like Northampton and Amherst do it exactly like we do in respect to the fact that the health department manages applications.
Mm-hmm.
And they have specific applications for food trucks. So I think what I'd like to do is, with this in hand, talk to Jackie Duda and see exactly what paperwork we're having the food vendors fill out when they come to her for a license, and see if there's any need for us to do anything on this end other than saying, in the city of East Hampton, here's where food trucks can go. Because I kind of feel like that's where we've kind of driven ourselves to at this point, is saying, are there places that we want to keep food trucks out of? Are there requirements for parking that we want to have established for food trucks? Like, you can't park in the same spot every day for a certain period of time, you know, like, so we don't have trucks just parking and staying forever. So that's kind of where I'm at with food trucks. I think that for our next meeting, let's make a note that we have Jackie Duda invited and get some final feedback before we start looking at drafting this ordinance.
Makes sense.
Okay. Perfect. And any other questions on?
No, just a thought or two, but
okay.
and it haven't really been formulated into real questions.
Okay.
But the noise, and we may have discussed this briefly. The noise from the food trucks.
Mm-hmm.
When we went to Millside Park the other day, there were 2 food trucks and both had generators running, blasting away.
Yep.
And it seemed fine at Millside Park, in the back, way off, so it didn't disturb the public listening to music. But I wonder what it would be like to have that level of background humming, drumming kind of sound on our streets. As a pedestrian, as a driving through, who cares?
Right.
As a person who owns the business where the truck it happens to be parked in front.
Right. I think that
could be an issue. So I just wanted to mention that and kind of think about that just a bit.
Have you guys identified any ideal spots for food trucks? Because to me, the parking lot, Family Dollar parking lot, it's not packed unless there's an event going on. You know, the farmers market's the only instance where you've got anything else really going on.
And that's certainly private property. So we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
In our thinking today, regulating where food trucks can park on private property.
Okay, and that makes
within a commercial zone.
Yeah, we're looking at, like, public parking spaces.
We're thinking about Cottage Street.
And I would say, you know, anecdotally,
Union Street.
The congestion factor is another thing with food trucks, because you're already in a situation where there's a fair amount of obstruction that can arise depending upon what vehicles are located where along that street. A food truck is only going to increase the likelihood of obstruction.
It's a little wider than most vehicles. It's a little taller than most vehicles. So we've been thinking about that.
Yeah, not having it near like corner intersections and
something that would obstruct vision near the crosswalk.
One of the reasons I also
You
bring
know,
up
if it's in the lane at the crosswalk, then.
the whole situation with the Family Dollar is because in Springfield, I know that the farmer's market also has food trucks as part of that event. So I mean, it would be great if there was a place where they knew they could go without having to worry about any number of different things. But in East Hampton, nothing jumps out at me immediately that would be a good spot that wouldn't create congestion and other problems as a result, because
Well,
there's
one spot does.
density.
Yeah.
Our parking lot
Yeah.
over here on Cottage Street.
Okay,
Our
that-
parking lot here.
Parking lot
and our
here.
parking lot there.
Yeah. I would say the parking lot there would be less ideal just because it is so small.
Exactly.
But it gets the traffic off of the street.
True.
Away
And then,
and then away from the crosswalks, and that has some value to me.
Mhm.
right. But then again, I think,
But it
obviously,
takes up space.
obviously I don't want to be protectionist, but I do think we should be somewhat, at least, aware and respectful of if designated areas for food trucks within close proximity to restaurants.
Yeah.
So, I can think Amy's Place is right there. Luthier's is going to be starting to serve more food. Whiskers has a kitchen. So.
I agree, but what's the difference between on the street at those locations on Cottage Street
Right. Which is why I think.
versus the parking lot? So if you.
Yeah, I mean, this is
We
something
could
that
park
we
right
can.
in front of Amy's or
Right.
at Luthier's,
But
or
I don't
park
think.
in the parking lot.
But I think we were looking at maybe designating specific parking spaces, so they can't just park in any parking space. There's like catch zones for food trucks. So, for example, maybe the first space right here in front of the pond would be a catch zone for a food truck. Maybe a couple spots on Union Street could be a catch spot. That would make sense.
How do you prevent anyone else from parking? Is it a sign that says parking for food
Yeah,
trucks?
you could put like how
But
like.
then it takes a space away when the food truck isn't here.
Yeah.
But no. It would be a temporary thing. So, the day that the food truck or whenever the food truck is going to come, it would be one of those the police put out the signs when they're going to do street work, say no parking area between this time and this time, and you could have just a paper sign.
I think that's a great idea, but
Yeah.
then it's burdensome on the police or the health department, whoever has to go.
Whoever has to put the sign there.
Today the day.
Yeah.
It's too bad you can't end up utilizing the northern side of the city. I mean, you've got the old auto, and I think that's still private property, but you've got this huge parking lot. A bunch of food trucks could be up there, even though you've got Jack, or whatever the restaurant is next door to it.
Where are we? I'm sorry.
Where the old, I don't remember who it is.
Fedor's.
Fedor's.
I think you're talking about.
Thank you. The
Yeah.
old parking lot, that I've talked about is one of those situations where there would be an opportunity to develop it. I looked at the possibility of home goods coming in there, never heard back from TJ Maxx Company at all, so I have no idea whether they've even considered it. Just as an idea, spitballing, but with respect to that even, that side of the city not being utilized, the only thing there is now really, because Zoe's is gone and the health, the health complex is there, you've got East Hampton Savings Bank's, flagship on the other side. All you've got is that little fish restaurant.
Captain Jack's.
Captain Jack's, thank you. So I mean, that parking lot would be a good location at some point during the week.
I mean,
And that would
it could be
again,
because it's private.
again,
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if there
So
could be
that would
something
be an issue.
negotiated under those circumstances that they're not even using
Well,
it, and they've been
maybe-
able to flip it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think we would have a provision within the ordinance that would allow flexibility if there was a space that we didn't think of and it was someone that people felt like it could be utilized. That could be just a discussion with the clerk and the police and say, hey, we think this is a good place. You get it checked off from boom. You get it checked off from boom. Because I know that, for example, is it Northampton or is it Amherst that makes you get you have to submit your application to the Board of Selectmen, the fire, and the police
Okay.
for a mobile vendor.
But that's for an
Like-
annual permit?
For mobile food units of purchase yeah.
But on an annual permit, so let's say you're issued an annual permit,
Yeah.
and you say, it's raining today, I'm not going out, okay, today, tomorrow, but some next week, and then
Right.
Tuesday you decide you're gonna show up.
That could be utilized by somebody else if you're not there, obviously, depending, there
Other
should
than
be
all
some
that time,
flexibility, yes. If you end up being able to notify, if there's a basis of notification within any given community that you weren't gonna be utilizing a spot that was authorized or issued to you as a result of an agreement, then someone else who might be utilizing another spot could have that spot also available, or I mean, that makes the most sense to me.
So,
It goes
well,
waste.
obviously we have to
We
figure,
work-
this is
work
something
that
we need to
out.
figure
Yeah.
out. I mean, I think really, the public ones are gonna be less complex than trying to figure out how to manage it behind the mills, which they're self-regulating right now, and it's fine. Like, you know, I think Saturday there's gonna be an event at New City with 4 food trucks. We'll see how that goes. You know, I think the mill owners aren't necessarily excited about the fact that there's just kind of, or you know, they don't have much control over that. But then there's the issue that the state paid for, and that parking lot, they have the easement for the property, but the state paid for it. So it's public parking with deed restrictions, so it's complicated. So we need to
The
figure
deed
out.
restrictions, I haven't read them. I would assume they're related to the parking spaces, maybe right in front of the building or designated.
Yeah, there's certain spots, and I know.
It's not designating partial control.
Walkability maybe too.
Control over the other spots.
I don't know exactly, but I do know that there might be like a food truck easement within that. I think the Mill 180 has something in their language that has something about them being able to place a food truck between their property and the bike path.
Okay.
Something like that. So anyway, there's still a few things we need to iron out on this. I just wanted to give us some more info, so we could come prepared for the next time. Because
So there's nothing to say we can't control on
no, there's nothing to say we can't.
public.
We could
on
try.
city.
On
parking
city
spaces.
parking spaces.
Should we choose to do that?
Should we choose to? It doesn't seem like
I'm
anybody else is doing that.
disinclined to go in
Doesn't
that
seem like
direction.
anybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, then that begs the question: do we need to do this at all? But I feel like as long as we do our due diligence and we vet this properly,
Right, then
we'll know.
we've looked at the
Yeah.
food truck ordinance.
Exactly.
And the food truck that's up at the auto parts place, that I don't even know if it's even open any longer, they've already had that land for a while, right? They've got that.
I
It's on-
think
it's on private.
they have an arrangement with the owner of the
Okay.
property.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're.
I'm
the
just saying in
owner.
terms of that being kind of a precedent within.
But that, you know.
Yeah, and that's a
That's-
permanent. That's there
Yeah.
all the
That's
time.
there all the time, and that's on business zone property.
Yeah.
No, I understand, I'm just saying in terms of looking at that with respect to how there is considerations given to police, fire, any of that stuff in terms of, you know, with respect to how they're communicating with
I
the
would
city.
think, I
is
would
what
think
the
they
city
would do
thinks.
nothing.
All through the Board of Health.
All through the Board of
Okay.
Health. You come
Yeah.
in, get your permit, you know,
Yeah.
get your license to operate that year and.
So that's what we need to figure out. Can we? And at the end of the day, we want to. It'd be great to have a food truck culture in East Hampton. So we don't necessarily want to hinder it, but then again, we also don't want to get caught. We don't want to get blindsided, and end up in situations that are not. But hey, when did I introduce this? A year ago? Because I was like, there's gonna be food trucks coming to East Hampton.
I remember
Yeah.
you did say that.
And here they are. They're here, and really there haven't been any major problems. So
that's a good thing.
that's a good thing. So that, I mean, at least we're paying attention and we're on top of.
Right.
We were ahead of the curve because there was like one food truck coming when we introduced this. Now I think there's gonna be 4. I went to Food Truck Friday 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I mean that was interesting because that was in the back of the Keystone building, and they had 4 or 5 food trucks all lined up in a row. They had closed the parking lot off. They had tables out. They had a live band. You could not hear the generators because the music and the people talking, and it was like you didn't even notice it. So that's an interesting aside. So anyway, so we'll review this stuff. We'll come back to it. I think, like I said, I want to have Jackie here one more time before we, you know. I think one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to amend this mobile vendor ordinance so it doesn't apply to food trucks at least, and it's a little bit more clear what it does apply to.
Mhm.
So that's going to be part of that whole discussion as well.
Great.
So we can move on to plastic bags, which is too bad Counselor Smith's not here. This is her. I think. Well, didn't we have jobs last time? Didn't we assign things that we were gonna figure
Yeah,
out?
I didn't think that we had
You
specific.
did to me, but that's okay.
Yeah, that
I
was
glad
a
to
couple
be
times
able,
ago.
yeah, I was glad to be able to go ahead and do the research, so I've definitely got some interesting.
Jim, for the public, because we are recorded.
Yes.
Jim.
Jim Kayon, resident of East Hampton, of course.
Okay.
I do have information with respect to the possibility of utilizing a company that is going to be implementing a non-incendiary technological process, completely eliminating any oxygen, so no possibility of any combustion whatsoever. Basically, what they're doing is that they have a system in place. They are not in place, but in terms of having finalized the reliability of the technology, they're figuring that the plant that they're going to open, the first one, there's an industry association through the American Chemistry Council, is going to be in Indiana, and it's going to open in 2018. Originally, they thought it was going to be 2017, but they would be able to produce fuel as a result. Instead of having to extract it, they would be able to take it directly from broken down plastic bags. So this is a pretty big development. They feel that it's going to end up providing a very large source of gasoline and in effect petroleum products. Although not exactly the same, but the same general purposes. Lubrication, and so forth. I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Mike Dungan. He was happy to find, it was great we finally got in touch with each other. And he more or less explained that they expect there's going to be a fairly big demand under the circumstances. And it is another source of revenue for the city of East Hampton, as I understand it. You would be able to derive a fair amount of money, I suspect, from the recycling program that doesn't exist at present, because you would be providing, a valuable commodity, in the process.
How would you see that? How would that be arranged?
I would imagine they would pay people for the bags they provided in order to break down into the fuel. I can't see them not doing that because of the fact there's such cost return. There's a value return on the fuel. There's no question about that. So if you have,
So take starts with it.
Sure.
So you collect the bags. The bags would be then sent to this plant. The plant would then convert them into some sort of petroleum product.
Okay.
And in return for, say, municipalities, if they had a trash collection program, sending in recycled bags, they would get reimbursed for that. So that would assume that we had a recycling. So that means the city, in that scenario, the city would have to figure out some sort of drop-off recycling system if people were so inclined to do that. I think that's.
Pretty much. I mean, basically, yes. And I think because of the return involved, it would be worth, the initial cost to be able. Again, I'm not knowing exactly if there is any real recycling program aside from what Big E's has going, and how much the cost factor would be associated with getting it up and running.
There's definitely no municipal recycling program. As we don't even have really a transfer station. Right? We used to have a drop off, but I feel like
I've kind of lost touch with it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not sure.
Was it on Oliver?
No,
It was like
this was
Brush.
right on Northampton Street, and you could come in and bring.
Oh, there, yeah.
And bring.
But I don't think you can.
Metal.
Yeah, but I don't think you can do household trash there.
No, household.
Or recycling.
No place to. It was recycling for metals.
For metals.
Yeah.
Maybe wood products.
You mean right by the river, right? The DPW.
Yeah.
Since
Shed,
the
the
opening
garage,
of Valley Recycling in Northampton, Route 10, I haven't heard much about our recycling.
Yeah, no.
So maybe that.
And of course, they're going to
check
probably,
into that.
all the recycling plants are probably going to be all over this. So the more that there might be, a local effort within municipalities to create their own revenue streams.
It'd be nice to stay ahead of the curve. on that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I think that's where things have to go, because even though you have these large recycling plants, the cost factor is just gonna make more sense at the end of the day. It's not so formal. You can just have, for just a box, you could have a simple cardboard box for people to drop off the bags. Wouldn't cost much at all.
Right. I mean, that could work out well if one of those. I think there was 3 things that we were talking about last time. One was, if an establishment is, doing a certain volume of plastic bags, they would have to have a receptacle to receive those plastic bags. So that's one of the solutions that we're looking at. And that could be, and we could say, the incentive for that is be like, hey, you do that, we'll send somebody around once a month to collect it, and there'll be no,
No grief.
yeah, no grief. And then, and then we could potentially make money. I mean, I'd be interested to see more about this technology. I haven't heard anything.
He's got the PDF and the
Okay.
link to the council. He
Cool.
can definitely send it off to you and Tamara.
Okay, cool.
The other thing I was going to mention, for what it's worth, and again, I'm going to sound like I'm self-aggrandizing, but with the products that, you know, I'm involved with marketing, that's the other end of it with respect to vehicles. You know, we're eliminating almost all the emissions, so if someone was using these plastic bags, at that point, then you completely address the environmental impact, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know what that looks like. I'm still trying to figure it out as I go, you know, in the process of marketing environmental engines, but I know the potential to lower emissions is enormous. It's just a matter of getting somebody on board to be able to implement it in a way, because, for example, the state contract that we're waiting to hear on still hasn't been finalized. There's still no announcement yet. And meanwhile, it's just trying to survive as best as possible. But this technology is amazing. It would address a very, very big concern for a lot of people.
So, so the other thing, you know, and I think one of the things, this is why I think that because I feel like I had asked Tamara to investigate how much these plastic bags cost. What is the cost for a business to buy, you know, their year supply of plastic bags? And then, because there's also plastic bags out there that are corn-based.
Yes.
In the United States right now, hemp-based are few and far between. You have to get them from Singapore.
Yep.
You can get hemp-based bags, but they're in Singapore. You cannot, which just means you'd have to order them from China. But that's a little bit more difficult.
Which brings up two questions, actually, Sam. Number one, if the industrial hemp ordinance bill that Chris Walsh has in place passes, is it a situation where that could be, you know, people could, or municipalities could avail themselves of that fairly quickly? Could, you know, would they be, is it conceivable to figure that the fabrication could happen fairly quickly, or is it going to take time to set up whatever infrastructure is necessary? I've never actually been able to compare a plastic hemp and a hemp bag to know what, you know, in terms of tactility, how they differ specifically, but I can't think they differ all that much.
No, I don't think so. I think hemp is probably better than corn in that respect. It probably has a little bit more tensile strength and
yeah, I would
have
agree.
a little bit more durability. But I don't know anything about the infrastructure that it would take to create, you know, like a production plant or anything like that. I would say that as a municipality, probably our role would be, if there's like a local, something that we'd have to adopt to accept that state law.
Yeah.
I think that this council would probably jump all over that to allow farmers to have more options.
Exactly.
To, you know, grow crops that they can make a profit on.
Yes.
Because industrial hemp is one of those products that would be easy to make money on.
Cash cow, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, because you can use it for
harvest,
you can use it for
annually,
and you can, you know, like it's a 4-month turnaround. So
yeah, a lot of applications too.
So, you know, that's like that's about as far as the municipality is concerned about, you know, and I think that, you know, for this right now, we're, from the conversations we've had, we're not necessarily looking at like a ban on plastic bags, like some of the other communities have, but maybe looking at some common sense measures that will kind of help mitigate
the effects
and help educate people. But we're still working out exactly what those are going to be and how we would implement them. But you know.
So maybe this becomes almost a step before you get involved with hemp, whenever that becomes feasible, working with, you know, the non-incendiary process, and then at some point when hemp becomes available, bam, you transition over. If there's already a plan in place to, you know, for that, a contingency, then it would work out well, I would think.
Yeah. You know, and I don't necessarily know how we would build that into an ordinance. You know, I think that if there's a plant that's going to be coming online, that's great. I think that kind of actually dovetails with us, you know, requiring large-scale plastic bag users to have a receptacle. You know, that's like the connection I see, and I think, you know, we have tossed around like a potential, you know, use fee, like that nickel or dime. We toss that around.
Initially, I was very much
against
taken aback by that idea, but then the more I thought
Okay.
about it, and the more I thought, this might make a lot of sense.
It's, I mean, if we want to limit the
in terms
use.
Nickel's not bad.
of getting people to really take this seriously.
Dime is where you start getting into a place where people feel they're being imposed upon, but a nickel isn't bad, because, you know, if you've got 6 or 7 bags, bring them in, you know, that adds up over time if you're using a lot of them.
If you bring your own bags, that's the point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
it
it's
saves
the
some
point,
money.
is to bring your own bag, clean bags to the store, use the bags, take them out, take the product, bring the bags back,
Right.
and we're not dealing with
And then
all
we
this
could-
recycling of
But we're
bags.
talking
And
about
yet,
plastic bags still, aren't we, in this instance?
bring any kind of bag from home.
Yeah,
Well, my thing is, you even could just bring the bags into the store, so they didn't have to order new ones, and
Right.
they'd have them on hand.
You
You'd
could
be
bring
bringing
your-
them from
bring
home,
your-
and
bring
they
your-
don't even have to recycle them at the outset. You know, they
Right.
have a certain percentage on hand, so that when you went in there, they were already there.
Reusing your bags.
Yes,
That-
Yeah.
absolutely, as much as possible. When they break down, that's when they go into recycling.
Except the cloth would have a longer life,
Yeah.
presumably, than
Well,
the plastic. And
Again,
that's the
cloth
thing.
being very specific to certain items in my mind. In other words, some
Absolutely.
variability.
Absolutely.
This is why I'm
Variability
saying.
needs, you know,
Right.
leakage, et cetera, contamination.
People who, I mean, and I used cloth bags for a while. I still need to get some more myself because they broke it down,
But
but.
then maybe it makes a lot of sense then for the eco-friendly bags.
Right.
The ones that.
The corn ones.
The corn ones, you know,
But they are actually compostable.
that are actually compostable.
True, and I mean, or a mix even.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, well, this is all information that we gather, and then we
Yeah.
then we.
or are we thinking?
Yeah, I know.
But it makes sense that as the plastic ones are being used, they're gonna break down. They're not built to last forever, so when they're in a point when they can't be used, they've got holes, they go into recycling, and that to me makes a lot of sense, you know, where people at the stores can look and say, oh, this is no good, you know, I can't, you know, give this to a customer, gonna go ahead and throw it in the bin, and it'll get recycled, and we'll have our, you know, whatever dividend comes about as a result.
Right. So we're continuing our discussions on
Yeah.
this subject.
Yep, I think so, because it would be good to have Tim.
Yeah. that would be
Yeah.
great.
So, all right. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to add, or?
That's pretty
'Cause
much
that
it,
pretty
you
much
know?
concludes our business.
Move to adjourn.
Second, all in
Sounds like a
favor?
plan. I gotta
Aye.
get some
Okay.
sleep for tomorrow.
So we're 6:33.
Again, thank you for letting me be.
So, thank you all for coming. I wanted to explain this meeting. It has to be a special meeting, number one, because we have a contract with all our applicants, and the contract says you cannot change the specifications without approval. And the specifications in this case were for field lighting, not for lighting on the sidewalks. Mr. Hogan asked me in an email, which I copied you on, if we could allow these. I said, number one, I can't approve it myself because it is a change in specifications. Number two, the school department first has to agree to it. Nancy's here to say she agreed to it after discussing what it was with the engineers. These are the lights. I think I copied you on what they are, that they're putting in.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be
No,
a,
we changed.
Oh, well, wait till I get through my thing, and then you can tell us what you're doing. Anyway, originally, I also thought that there would be a problem with holding the price, because the contractor was on site. I asked Mr. Hogan to ask if that was indeed true. It's not true. They'll hold the price till January. So I said, all right, do we need to do this right away? We could wait till the regular October meeting. Then I realized I was there. They had to put all these little solar lights the first game so that people could see getting out of the parking lot. I said, why not get this done? They have more night games if we can. So this is really about safety for me. This is why I asked you to do a special meeting. You should know, and I didn't provide, in an email I provided you all with all of the bids that came in. They saved $60,000 on this project. It was originally granted at $185. It came in at $129. They're asking for 5 more to do these lights. So the first thing I said, well, geez, we should be able to just say yes to this, but I can't do that, not myself. I hope you understand that. I don't have the authority to override your contract. And I think this is good, because if some applicant, in this case the football people, say 50 grand and they thought they could, they'd put in bleachers or something, and we didn't approve that. So I appreciate the fact that you knew that and you came to me and asked for this process, because that's important. 99% of the time, we'd be able to wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting. So I hope this doesn't happen often. It probably won't happen again. But in this case, for me, it was about safety and seeing at night when they're leaving the field. And the contractor is ready to do this immediately. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So I thought it was a good thing. We don't have to appropriate new funds. They have the funds in place. We're still gonna get 50 grand back, correct? After this is done. It's 185 minus 134, 51,000. So they saved a lot of money. So I thought, well, okay, but I need a majority of the committee to approve it. I can't do this myself. So thank you for coming. I'll turn it over to Nancy and Tom to tell us what you're doing.
So we had a meeting with, what was that?
Utility Service of New England is the contractor, the low qualified bidder for the lighting project. They were the low bidder. We had come to with a budget in mind of $185,000. I was after working with some contractors. They came in as the low bidder at 129. There were bids that were substantially higher than our 185. There were bids that were right around our 185. I still like that number, but we found this company who does quite a bit of work, I believe, with the city of East Hampton, wants to continue that positive relationship. They're qualified, they're good. While I'm here, if I can kill two birds with one stone, I think part of our conditions of approval was that I give you a report in October anyway as to the status to make sure we're going forward. Obviously, the project is completed, I'll say 99%. I'm watching some grass grow on the conduit runs, and I think it's going to be just fine. We didn't have one change order for one penny, nothing unexpected. Everything went smooth after a long planning process. This request is merely to try and, like Mr. Riss had said, just to make that one little area a little bit better. What we observed, a couple comments coming back, was we love the lights. They're bright, they're achieving exactly what we wanted to achieve with them. As we approach the higher elevations leaving the facility, there's that short distance between the curb where the big tree is that probably blocks some of the light off the corner of the school, but it's a beautiful tree. And then where you would enter the parking lot where it gets picked up by the other side of that corner light and the regular parking lot lighting. So this company wanted to continue. We went through the process that Mr. Chris talked about. They originally proposed the lantern style lights that you have the detail in front of you, which you can see in the parking lot of this building. Beautiful light. The school prefers LED for a lot of functional and good reasons. So the contractor agreed to take a little bit of a haircut and provide the LEDs at the same price that he quoted us.
Okay.
It has to look different because it's a more efficient look. It's what, in essence, you would see in the parking lot of White Brook now, but on a 16 block.
And it does
Instead of the
match
top.
lighting that we already have and seems appropriate for that walkway. So.
Okay. I was gonna ask, the parking lot has the same type of lighting? I didn't even, and LEDs are certainly energy efficient.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why
Questions?
we went with this one, made that choice.
Questions? Pretty straightforward, but I still have to have you here to say yes, guys, I'm sorry.
So these are 16-foot poles, is that right?
And there's two of them going in, Tom?
We'll be on the upgradient side of the sidewalk, just before the point of curvature as you're going up, and then near the intersection with the straight driveway segment in the casting the light in a northerly direction.
It was dark when I left that night, and it wasn't even, it was still twilight to a certain extent, because I didn't stay for the full game. And these lights are beautiful, by the way. I was amazed that they put them in very quickly. And I'm amazed at the price, saving 50,000. Wow. So, I mean, if you came back to us for more than 185, we couldn't do this. We'd have to go to the city council and everything. But this is merely a vote agreeing to a change in the contract that we've established. There's no money involved. Agreeing that they could spend extra funds on this, but only this. You can't put bleachers in. That's the next.
So the
And where does it connect? It's an underground connection to where for the electricity?
into the electric lines that were put in by the contractor.
For the football field.
Yeah, and they'll go on, and I'm sure they have an as-built of how that went. They're very straightforward. You can, if you see where the utility closet is up by the dish in kind of the northwest corner of the school, and then you can see the big line that goes down to the power box behind the snack shack. So I'm sure that they'll tie into that line so that it will be operable by the key that turns.
So these are only gonna be on, Nancy, when there's a football game? Or any night, and they're not on all the time?
No.
Like the parking lot?
No, they would be on when the football lights are on.
And they're controlled from that box behind the snack shack. Right.
Good.
Is there any sense that there might be a need for additional lighting in the future?
This has been the one spot that's been identified as an opportunity to enhance what we have there now. No one's talked about, no one's talked about the whole campus. They talked about their car to the field. So this is what's been brought to our attention.
Are you asking, Greg, 'cause if they wanted other lighting around the
Yeah, if
football
they
field,
wanted
this
to
would be the best
build
time.
it out or something like that, we would want to think about that maybe now. So as long as this is sort of, seems like a final solution for it.
I think it has to be football lighting related, given the parameters with which we established. If they wanted to add more light to the parking lot, I think that's a separate question. I don't think we could do that. It's not related to the recreational side of the CPA. So this is, because it's part of making sure it's safe to get to the football fields. Anything else? I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the requests for additional, or to use the funds already approved in an additional, in the manner stated.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
Can I just clarify, so the $5,000 is for the materials and for the labor and all that? It's a pretty good price, I would imagine, for.
That's why I wanted, I said,
what is,
geez,
you know,
Yeah.
how long is he gonna hold this price?
Probably because they're
you know, the,
site, you know,
the
they don't have to
connections,
mobilize
the
again.
two 16-foot poles.
Well,
you know,
given
so-
that one company said $225 to put the poles in, and he went $129, he went $100,000 less.
Yeah,
There's a markup going on here someplace.
yeah.
And he's still probably making some profit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion?
Can I just ask, is there, do we know, like, where is LED lighting elsewhere in the city? You probably have an
All the
idea.
poles, if you look at all the streetlights, a
They're
lot of them are
all
LEDs.
now LEDs.
If they're bright
Bluish.
bluish ones, they're LEDs. If they're the big bright, they're xenons. There's still some xenons around. Most, Mike Tosnick changed a lot of them. We saved $90,000 a year doing that.
Yeah, I thought we'd made an initiative or
You
something.
know, it was great.
All right,
And
I'm
it
done.
being in context right next to it, you can go in that parking lot and they're on right now, same stack.
Okay, so,
Great.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn. Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So the minutes of this
Appreciate it.
will be in with the minutes of the next meeting, so it's separate minutes, okay? So by virtue of the minutes, you're approved. I don't think I need to sign anything. The committee is doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry for the time confusion, but I thought it was.
Thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate it.